A very good afternoon to you all, and thank you for joining the latest in our series of live webinars on the HOP platform. So HOP stands for the Hertfordshire Opportunities Portal. That is a website that we hope every young person and every school in Hertfordshire and surrounding areas are familiar with and using, because it is a one-stop shop for all your careers advice and guidance that you might need as you go through school and college. So these webinars are one feature that we have on the HOP website. Over the last 4 years or so, we've recorded about 100 of these webinars where we get a panel of experts on to talk about their experiences. And by watching live, so it's 4:30 on Thursday, by watching live, you've got the opportunity to interact with our panelists. So you can ask them your own questions, so you can follow up on anything we discuss. If you want to know a little bit more or you want a bit more advice or guidance, you can do that. You don't have to put your hand up and ask. You can type the question in. So on your dashboard, you'll see that there's a questions tab. If you click on that questions tab, it'll open out and there's a text box that opens out there. And within that, you can type your question in. It'll only be visible to me, and then I'll direct that question through to the panelists that you want to ask that question to. We should be going through till about 5:30 today, so just about an hour. If you can't stay till the end of it, or if you do watch it and you think, actually, you know what, my friend should really watch this as well, say it will be available probably from tomorrow lunchtime onwards, and it will be on HOP on our YouTube channel. You can see our different social media platforms on your screen at the moment, so please do follow and join. And so do share those videos with people that you know as well. So bringing it through to today's session, we are looking at careers in legal. We've done careers in legal a couple of times previously, but it's always a really popular subject, and we like to get different people on as well to talk about their own experiences. So I'm delighted to say that we've got two, well, I'm going to say practicing solicitors, but I mean people who have come out of the university and they're now working in industry at the moment. So I'll get Amy and Juliet to introduce themselves and their company at the moment. We've also got a current law student from the University of Hertfordshire with us as well, who can talk directly about his current experiences, about how he's getting on at the University of Hertfordshire's Law School as well. So we hope this will be really informative for you. We hope over the next hour or so that we'll be able to help you understand a little bit more about the legal profession, about the different routes into it, and a little bit more about what the job actually entails. So introducing our panelists then. So first of all, a very good afternoon to Amy. Amy, thanks so much for joining us. Could you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a trainee solicitor at Crane and Staples in Welwyn Garden City. So they're a firm which specialise in family, property, wills, trusts and probate and litigation. I'm currently 3/4 of the way through my training contract, so I qualify in September, and I'm going to continue at Crane and Staples as a property solicitor doing residential and commercial property. I studied at University of Hertfordshire prior to my training contract, doing a law degree and the LPC, which then took me to where I am now. But that's me.
Thanks very much, Amy. Good afternoon, Juliet.
Hi, my name's Juliet. I'm also a trainee at Crane and Staples. So I studied at Nottingham Trent University. I did my undergraduate there, law with criminology. Then I went travelling for a year, and then I returned to Nottingham Trent to do my master's and LPC. After that, I was an ombudsman for a year. And then I am now a trainee, finish on the 1st of September, and I will be qualifying into private family, so I'll be specialising in divorce and children, private finances, things like that.
Thanks very much for joining us, and very good afternoon to Bart. Bart, thank you for joining us.
Hello, good to see you. I'm a second year law student, that's a LLB at the University of Hertfordshire. I'd say at the moment it's been quite insightful, quite enjoyable, and I think I'm starting to get a grasp for the areas that I'm interested in.
Sure, thank you very much. So look, we look forward to delving into your particular careers and where you are in your journey at the moment. But first of all, I just want to find out, when did you realise that law was a career for you? So Amy, take us back to perhaps when you were at secondary school. I think you were you went to, was it QE Girls in Barnet, so just outside of Hertfordshire. But what was the point where you realised that this might be the career for you?
I would say I didn't have any idea that I wanted to do law until probably my last year in sixth form, if I'm honest. I did a random selection of A levels and I came to the conclusion that sociology was my favourite A level, which was one that I chose. And I looked at the career options from sociology and I didn't actually like the career options that were available from that degree. I felt like it was quite limited for what the types of things I wanted to do. So I looked at similar degrees I could do at university and I saw law was an option, and I looked at the career options with law and I thought, wow, there's actually, that opens a lot of doors even if I don't go into law. So even when I started my law degree, I thought, I don't know if I'll even go into law, but I'll probably use it in some way. And then when I was doing my law degree in the first year, I decided instantly that I love it and it's something that I actually want to pursue. And I then decided to go down the solicitor route. But prior to sixth form and doing my A levels, I had no idea. And I think I just took a view from what I enjoyed the most on my A levels, what I was good at, and just took it from there. But even when I did my law degree, initially I didn't know if I was going to even go into law. So mine was more about the subject of what I wanted to do at university rather than actually knowing I was going to do law, really.
Okay. And just tell us, Amy, which A levels did you do alongside sociology?
Yeah, so I did a strange mix just because I wasn't sure what I was going to do in life. So I did sociology, maths, music, all as A levels. But when I did A levels, it was AS and A levels. So I did AS Spanish as well, and then dropped that. So that was I did a real mix.
Sure. Okay. Well, look, we'll come back to those A-level subject choices. I think that'd be really interesting. Juliet, just tell us about your sort of experiences at school. I know you went to school in Hertfordshire. Which A-levels did you do? When did law become apparent? When was it apparent to you that was something you wanted to go into?
Yeah, so I went to John Henry Newman in Stevenage. They actually offer law at A level. So I did choose law, and that's sort of where it started. So alongside law, I did sociology and business. And yeah, that's where it really started. Initially, it was I wanted to be a police officer. It's in my family, and hence why I did law with criminology at uni. But then it was when I was at uni and I was learning the different areas that I decided that a solicitor route was more for me.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And then Bart, the same question to you. When did you realise that law was your destiny?
Yeah, well, I would say along similar lines to Juliet. I first became interested in law when I chose it as one of my A-level subjects. I think prior to that, it wasn't really anything that was in my mind. It didn't even occur to me. I saw it amongst the different options. I thought maybe it would be more interesting than A-level English. Nothing wrong with A-level English, of course. And I just came to really enjoy it. The cases, the scenarios, the way that it pretty much governs everything that we do. And so once I learned the process of actually gaining legal qualifications, I thought that choice of a degree would be something, really challenging, really fun to get into, but at the same time, something with a lot of transferable skills in many different areas, even if you don't want to go into practice.
Sure. Okay. And then just tell us, what were your A-level subjects, Bart?
I studied A-level law, A-level economics, and then also I actually did study A-level music. I think during my A-level studies, I very nearly actually went to study music at university, but then I think I decided that it would be a more stable career option, especially during the pandemic. There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of stuff going on, and I don't regret my decision. I think it was quite fun and quite challenging at the same time.
Sure. Okay, fine. Well, look, we're going to come on to subject choices a little bit later. But to start with, and this will be more for Amy and Julia as you're in industry at the moment as trainees, we want to know a little bit more about what does the average day look like for you. So, of course, Amy, without giving away any confidential information about any of the clients or cases you're working on, what does an average Thursday look like for you? What sort of things are you doing?
I mean, today has been a particularly crazy, manic day, as it always is in family. I'm in family at the moment, which is my last training seat. Prior to that, I did private client, which is wills, trusts and probate, then property. But with, in particular to family, it's very fast paced. Deadlines are always emerging, and it's not something you can leave till tomorrow. It's, if we've got plans tonight, they're going to have to get cancelled because it's not something you can put off. But often as a trainee, I'm going to court to assist and help with clients and support clients. Even though there'll be a barrister there, we go there as support for the client, take notes, maybe, you know, and things like that, to come back to the solicitor and tell them what's going on. Sometimes the solicitor might go as well, but often it's more cost effective for a trainee to go. Preparing court bundles, drafting witness statements, dealing with emails, letters, and all sort of forms of correspondence with clients and the other side, so the solicitors are active with the other side. Reading medical records, reading police reports. It's very, very interesting, but that's kind of a day in the life of family, really.
Yeah. And Amy, typically, how many different cases might you have in your caseload at any one point?
So as a trainee, we would assist a solicitor with their caseload, but easily you could have, I mean, it varies from time to time, but you could have nearly 100 cases at one time.
Wow, okay. And I mean, how do you decompartmentalize between those cases? Because I guess you've got either figuratively or literally, you might have a file here for case A, and then you suddenly pick up, or an email comes through about case F, and then you've got to deal with that one. How do you cope with that?
We have something called a priority pyramid. They teach us.
Oh, you get taught that day one. Day one.
And that pyramid is constantly changing, effectively. So you'll start your day with, I need to prioritize. You always have to prioritize. So you start your day with, this is the most important thing I've got to do today, with a deadline of the end of the day, and then you work your way through your list like that. But often things pop up and that priority list keeps changing, so you really have to learn and be strict to yourself to prioritize what's most important. So if I was working on one case and then something pops up on another case and that's more important, you have to drop it and you have to move on to the other one. But yeah, I mean, it is very difficult trying to differentiate between all the different files, but you just have to, when you're working on them daily, you get to know the differences and who's who. It just comes naturally.
Sure.
I think it's also about utilising your diary as well. Setting reminders for yourself, have I got a meeting today? Okay, do I need to prepare anything for it? Things like that. So my typical day, I'd come in, I'd check my diary. Do I have any meetings? Do I need to do any pre-reading? Check my emails. Is there anything urgent that's coming overnight? They're my sort of initial tasks before I start thinking, okay, what else have I got to do today?
Yeah.
I mean, Julia, I assume the background that we can see is actually your office. It's not a virtual screen and you're actually sat on a beach somewhere.
Yes, these are the files behind me.
Yeah, those are the files behind you. How often are you actually in the office at your desk? Are you often ever out meeting clients?
So in private client, yes is the answer. We have a lot of vulnerable clients who sometimes need a home visit. Perhaps they're disabled or elderly. So we go out to home visits. We also do property checks. So if we're executors on the file, we have to go to the property, check that everything's in order, check the property's sort of safe and secure, make sure the heating's working properly, making sure the taps are still running, things like that. So I get out in that sort of sense. We do a lot of webinars, a lot of events we go to, such as this. But yeah, I mean, as a trainee, I'm in every day, but I live sort of local, so it's actually fine. And to be honest, as a trainee, I think it's good to be in every day because that's how you learn.
For sure. Okay. And then, so, I mean, Juliet, so you said you're on the, or going to go into private and family law, and then Amy, you look after property and residential at the moment. So, but as an aspiring solicitor, you're in the second year, which strand of law do you want to go into and why? Oh, Bart, we can't hear you. I'm trying to work out why that is.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, as I was saying, it's the wonderful thing about the subject and about the profession in general is that there's such a broad number of areas that you can go into. I think most people, or not really most people, actually some people have kind of an initial idea of what specialism they really want to practice in. Some of the more well-known areas like crime are quite appealing to people. Personally, so far, I'd say for a couple years, I started to kind of find an area that I really liked, and I think probably commercial property, housing, and employment are three areas that really interest me. So what I liked about them was with employment law, for example, the nature of the clients that you deal with, the situations you deal with. I think it feels quite rewarding in a sense to be able to help them with some of the issues that they face. I do know some people that practice in commercial property. One of the panel members, I think, mentioned that they also do that. And then housing law, it's quite interesting. I volunteer with a charity called Shelter, and so obviously that is housing law related. And a lot of the clients that you sometimes work with, with someone who's facing an eviction, and so there's almost that very personal side to it. So it's not just about the money, but it's also the kind of the personal side of it, how you're helping people. So I think those kind of three areas, but still narrowing down, and the brilliant thing is you can get even more specialized with it over time. So yeah.
Sure. Okay. I mean, what I always found interesting when I talk to people like you guys, and I've got the picture on the screen there as well, is I always assume that everyone wants to go into law because they think they're going to be working in criminal cases. They're going to be involved in exciting cases where they're putting their case to the jury and to the judges, which is, I guess, it's the glamorous side of law that we probably see on TV and in films, isn't it? But the reality of it, Amy, is that those sort of opportunities are very few and far between.
Yeah, I mean, our firm doesn't offer criminal at all, and you'll find a lot of local firms actually don't. They tend to be more specialised in criminal, and a firm that just does criminal. And the reality is of criminal, it's the least paid out of all of the areas of law, and you're going to constantly be on call. So you could be at home sitting around watching the telly at 2 in the morning, and then you'll get a call saying you've got to get down to the police station. It's if it's something that you would love, then great. But for me, it was never something I considered, even though I thought it was really interesting. It's just I didn't like the life of perhaps not earning loads of money for that sort of constant on-call job where I'm going to be working all hours. It's not a 9 to 5. I mean, law generally is not a 9 to 5 job, but criminal particularly is not.
No. Well, I mean, Julia, you said your initial interest in law was through policing, which was a career that you thought about doing. So I guess there's some synergies there between policing, law, and criminology. Has it ever been a route that you considered?
It was initially. I did a lot of work experience with criminal firms, and I think that's probably what made me decide perhaps no. And I think my advice to people that are going to go into law or thinking about going into law is to gain that work experience, because you do get an insight. Although perhaps it's only one day, perhaps it's a week, you do get an insight as to the day-to-day life, and I think that does give you an inkling as to what area you want to go into.
Sure. And then, I mean, Bart, you listed three areas that you're interested in doing. Do you think that's reflected across your peers at the university? Do any of them aspire to be criminal lawyers?
Some people, to be honest, I think everyone aspires to be a criminal lawyer at some point. It's kind of the more glamorous side of things until you kind of look at the pay and whatnot. But yeah, I would say there's a good range. I know people who want to do public law. I know people who tried family law. Initially, they didn't think it was that nice. They thought it was quite emotionally charged, and then once they actually got into it, they saw that it was something that's quite rewarding, also quite interesting to get into. There's people who want to get into medical law. There's all sorts, really. So I think there's a fair range of different areas that people want to specialize into.
For sure. Okay. Well, we've probably talked around this, but let me ask you to answer it explicitly, Juliet, and then Amy. So, Juliet, what are the most enjoyable aspects of your job? And then, Amy, if I ask you to cover the flip side of that, is what are the more challenging sides that maybe people should be aware of that maybe that they aren't when they first get into it? So, Juliet, first of all, over to you. Then, what are the really enjoyable sides and rewarding sides of this career?
For me, it's the sort of client interaction side of things. I mean, when you're doing something that means so much to the client and you get a good outcome, they are honestly so grateful. And perhaps even if you don't get, the best outcome for the client, and just the feedback that they give you afterwards. I mean, all that hard work that you've put in, I mean, it pays off, and it's so nice to know that you're making such an impact on a client's life. So for me, client interaction is definitely up there with one of the best things. Also webinars, meeting new people at sort of events, things like that. That's a great part of the job as well. Learning on the job as well, quite like that. Facing new things, navigating around sort of more difficult tasks. Yeah, I think that's in a nutshell.
Okay, and Amy, assuming that you agree with all of those, then tell us some of the perhaps the more challenging sides of the role then.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely challenges. I mean, it's not, as you can imagine, it's not an easy job. I mean, we are working with the public, so occasionally you are going to get difficult clients. We work with clients from all walks of life. Some maybe, you know, like don't have much money. Some might have loads of money. Some, you know, they come from all different backgrounds, and you have to learn to adapt to each of their needs, and some of them will have high expectations of you. It's just, you have to learn to adapt to all the different clients, and sometimes there will be clients that make complaints, things like that. You have to learn to deal with that. The other thing I would say is that the work can be quite difficult, can be quite challenging. Sometimes we have to research things, look things up because and often I find myself doing work that I've never, you know, drafting something I've never done before, particularly as a trainee. So you're often having to learn on the job, which I do find quite tricky, but at the same time, it is the best way to learn.
And I think don't be scared to ask either. Don't be scared to ask for help.
Yes, definitely. The other thing is deadlines. Deadlines, but we're always fighting against that clock of deadlines. So you have to be super organised. I always sometimes find that quite high pressure, and generally I think the job is a high pressure job, but at the same time I love it. So
very rewarding as well.
Yeah, everything has cons.
Sure. I mean, Amy, just sort of final question in this section. You said there are some times when you know you've got a case and you've got a deadline and actually you've got to cancel your plans that evening. What's the work-life balance like? I mean, do you find yourself having to come in the office on a Sunday morning to finish things off, or can you largely do it? Is it Monday to Friday?
I mean, we are in a high street firm, so high street firm is going to be very different to a London firm. London firms, you will have less of a work-life balance. You'll probably be working late often, occasionally at the weekend. In a high street firm, there's less expectation on that. I don't work at the weekend. I occasionally might have to work late and stay maybe once a week, a bit later. That's about it on average. But I'd say it also depends on the area of law you're in. So family,
yeah, definitely.
I'm staying here a lot later and a lot more than what I was, say, in property or private client. Just because although we have deadlines in all areas of law, family is generally more pressing than, say, private client is. And also you've got to remember, we've got people's lives in our hands, and we've got the courts to deal with. The courts won't wait for you. And you will get thrashed in court by the judge if you file things late. So it doesn't look good on us before we even start. So yeah, so I'd say it depends on the area of the law you're working in. It depends on which kind of firm you're working at, but generally I'd say that I have a work-life balance.
Sure. So how frequently do you go into court yourself?
On average, I'd say about once a fortnight. Sometimes it can be more in a short space of time. Sometimes I might not go for a while. It depends what's on. Sometimes we have things listed all at the same time. Sometimes we don't have anything listed for a while. It's very dependent, but generally I'd say on average about once a fortnight.
Yeah, and
I'd also say, like, you could get a case through on a Friday listed for a Monday. So I think in that sense as well, if that happens, you know, you will be working late on the Friday. Just to get things prepared and make sure everything's in line before it goes in front of the judge, because the judge will not forgive you if anything's missing.
I mean, sorry, I was going to say particularly children as well. Like we might get an emergency application that's been made for their safety, for example. That's something that can't wait. It's just the reality, which is why we might have an emergency court hearing.
Yeah, and when you are in court, are you at a stage in your careers where you're just assisting one of your colleagues and sort of passing them sort of bits of paper when they need it, or are you actually having to give evidence and speak directly to the judges yourself?
So as a trainee, obviously that we're not going to be standing up in court doing the talking. I mean, that's the reason why we appoint a barrister. That's what we're paying them there. That's what we're paying them for. They're there to do the advocacy. They're there to do all the talking. I'll be there in court with my laptop, taking notes, almost like a transcript effectively of what's happening, because when we come back to the office we have to draft a note up very detailed of exactly point by point what's happened in court, because the solicitor will need to know, and it helps us drafting future documentation, things like that. Often we'll have a pre-hearing conference in a meeting room with the client, so I'll be there giving opinions, helping with the advice, assisting the barrister with, you know, they often look at us and say, well, what do you think? And just generally providing support to the client. We tend to go to hearings more when the client is vulnerable. They feel like they need, you know, someone holding their hand. Often I'm in court next to the client. I'll be sitting there. You know, if they want to say something to me, I can then relay that to the barrister and make sure that, you know, their point's getting across. Things like that. So yeah, but you won't be expected to do the advocacy.
Yeah, no, okay. I'm going slightly off piste here, but this has really piqued my interest there. So when you're actually in court, is there a competitive streak in you that sort of really comes out that you think, I really want to win this case? I mean, A, because you want to support your client and you develop that rapport with them, but I guess you may know the solicitors on the other team. They might be your friends, mightn't they? Might have been your peers. How does that actually pan out? Talk me through some of those emotions, Juliet, when you're actually in the court and it's your case against someone else's.
I suppose you get filled with a little bit of adrenaline, especially when there's a judgment, and you've got to sit there in the judgment, and sometimes you don't know which way it's going to go, and you know you can't react. You've got to stay professional, stay neutral. You know, you've got to be that support network for the client, and sometimes it's difficult, especially if, you know, there's a local authority case and they take the child. You know, that is the reality of it sometimes, and you just have to support the client as best you can, really. I don't know if Amy's got anything to add.
No, I was going to say, we do, without breaching any confidentiality, we had a case recently where a client was very, very anxious because she might have lost her child, quite unreasonably, to be honest. And yeah, the judgment, we had absolutely no idea how that was going to go, but it ended up being that she got to keep the child, which was absolutely amazing. But I felt myself, actually, you really get involved with it. I mean, you're meant to keep yourself separate and not get emotionally involved, but I felt like I really wanted that win for her, because it was just, you become so passionate about it when you're involved in it on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can imagine. I'm sure I can see there are questions pinging through, so I'm sure we can come back to some of these experiences you've got in court. Look, but I'm going to lean on you a little bit more for this section. So look, everyone's told us the A levels that they did. Can you tell us, Bart, what made you choose Hertfordshire University above any others?
Well, I'd say there's a number of reasons. Well, if you look at the history of Hertfordshire University, it was formerly a polytechnic, so it was considered to be an engineering university. That was mainly where its reputation was. But if you look at some of the alumni, including one of our panelists that have come from Herts, there's some very successful lawyers actually that have come from here, and they're working in all kinds of areas of law. And I think, for example, a really good illustration actually would be Grace Ononuwu, who's Director of Legal Services at the CPS, right at the top. Her name is plastered on our law court building. And she gave a truly inspirational talk really on the challenges she faced as an ethnic minority, as someone from, you know, a working class background. And I think that what really sets Hertfordshire apart is what the alumni such as her are willing to do. They're really engaged with, you know, they're always coming back to the university, and they're always willing to help the next generation pretty much to make progress. And I'd say the law school is really becoming more and more of a prominent feature in the university.
Okay, well, that's really good to hear, and it's on our doorstep as well. If I can just bring Amy and Juliet here. Amy, I know you technically lived in North London, but Hertfordshire is very much on your, on your doorstep. So, Amy, you went to University of Hertfordshire, didn't you? But Juliet, you chose not to. So, Juliet, first of all, why did you choose to go elsewhere, and what was part of your decision-making process?
Well, for me, I've always wanted to travel. I think that's definitely in my nature. I've taken, a few breaks to go on traveling, sort of experience new cultures, things like that. And I think I've always wanted to move away personally when I went to uni. I wanted to meet new people. I wanted to experience a new place. Obviously, Nottingham is known for a good night out as well. You have to have that balance. But I think also, it was a fantastic campus compared to the ones that I visited, and I visited quite a few. The facilities were sort of top notch. I fell in love with it when I went there. I said to my mum, I'm going there as soon as I got there. And I think I'd already been to Durham, Liverpool, Birmingham. I think I'd been to Hearts as well. And yeah, I just fell in love with it straight away. So yeah, always wanted to move away and just experience a new way of life. Also
Sure.
had to cook on my own as well, which was a new experience.
So yeah, you gained some very good independent learning and life skills by moving away. Amy, again, what was the attraction to you to going to the University of Hertfordshire?
A number of reasons really. One was I came to the conclusion I actually wanted to stay at home. So it was local to me, it was easy to get to, I could drive. I still chose it though over a lot of London unis. I felt more comfortable when I was sort of visiting Hertfordshire. I felt like I would fit in there. I didn't feel like it was very high pressured. I felt like they were very supportive. And I actually knew people that had been there as well to do a law degree already, and they said that they felt that they were very hands-on, and I felt like I really wanted that support, knowing that it wasn't going to be an easy degree. They also had a mock courtroom which they'd filmed various TV shows in, which was definitely appealing. I thought, oh, this is going to be really, really fun.
These are for EastEnders, don't they?
Yes, they filmed EastEnders there. And I actually watched something else recently where I thought, I recognise that courtroom, and I looked it up and it actually was Hertfordshire. So yeah, that was definitely an appeal as well. Yeah, I just generally I got a good feeling, like Juliet did when I went there. I felt like it was definitely where I wanted to go. So
Sure. Okay. I mean, of course, but law is a very popular degree course that lots of undergraduates choose, and therefore lots of universities offer it. So tell us a little bit more about the course structure that you're doing at the moment. So what things are you learning? How long's the course and so on?
Well, there are some people who can take an accelerated degree. I know a couple of people who do that. So if you want to go through things a bit more quickly and you're willing to have a bit more of an intensive, I guess, learning experience without a summer break, then you can do that. There's placement years, there's options to study abroad, but otherwise, without all of those different options, it would usually be a 3-year course. In the first year, it's restructured, so it's probably different for whoever comes there and what intake you are. But I will say that on the 3rd year, you choose pretty much all of your modules, all of your electives, and it's all pretty much stuff you're interested in. The challenge, the level of difficulty, I think, is really, it will be challenging in and of itself, but there will be more to it than just the academics of it purely. For example, there's plenty to offer in terms of co-curriculars. If you look at the Canvas website, once you actually join into the university, there's a whole array, a massive list of just things that you could do, gain work experience in the more practical aspects of the profession as well. For example, advocacy, client work. There's many opportunities for volunteering, as I mentioned earlier, volunteering with shelter. And we also run a law clinic, which is quite well known in the area, I think, where student volunteers can partner up with qualified barristers or solicitors on real cases. And there's plenty of initiatives really plenty more opportunities that you can just find if you just research and you look for those opportunities. There's plenty to do. The other thing I would say is, again, the facilities are excellent. You'll have everything you need. There's obviously the advocacy training, there's competitions, and there's also plenty of insight days, I think, that will be coming up soon. So if anyone wants to come and have a look, it'd be good to see for yourself.
For sure, yeah, no, absolutely. I can't really recommend that highly enough. Actually, go and look at the course. Even if you know you don't want to go to Hertfordshire, you want to go, like Juliet, you want to go and travel, you want to see other parts of the country. If Hertfordshire is your closest university with a law school, do go and visit them on their open days anyway. Go and talk to the tutors there. They're not just going to sell you university. They're going to try University of Hertfordshire. They're going to try and sell you that course. Juliet, if I just come back to you, was there anything within the course structure that appealed to you about the one that you eventually chose with Nottingham Trent in the end?
No, not in particular. I mean, they like Hertfordshire, they have a mock courtroom. They have a sort of like a law clinic that you can join as well. But no, it was more, I just got that feeling that I wanted to be there. I think that is the main thing.
Okay. You may well have your own questions if you're watching this now about particular universities. You may well have questions about A levels as well. So let's just pick up on that. So listing the subjects that you guys did, I've got 2 ticks for sociology, 2 for music, bizarrely, and 2 for actually studying law. Now, of course, Juliet, you studied A-level law. Not many schools, certainly in Hertfordshire, offer law as an A-level. But was there anything that you gained from studying A-level law that you think is actually really helping you now that you're actually in industry?
I think, well, it definitely gave me a good standing when I went to university because a lot of the things that I learnt in A-level actually repeated in undergraduate. So I'd say in terms of university, it definitely gave me a good standing. And I suppose in terms of sort of as a trainee as well, it gives you that legal basis. I mean, it gave me the first indication that I wanted to do law. And then obviously it gets built up upon when you go to university and then when you do your training contract. But yeah, it gave me that initial sort of spark and interest.
Sure. Okay. And then Amy, look, similar question about the sociology A level that you chose, which you said was your favourite A level. Are there aspects of that that you think, oh, look, I'm really pleased I did that because it actually helps me understand what I'm doing on a day-to-day level better?
Yeah, I mean, it covers a wide range of topics, but it's effectively the study of people. And we looked at that from a criminal point of view and from a family point of view. I mean, this is a long time ago now. But yeah, I remember we definitely looked at it from a criminal point of view and a family point of view, and there was other points of view we looked at it from. And that's actually quite relatable to law. I felt like that was really helpful. I felt like I looked at people in a different way after studying that. But yeah, I felt like it was really helpful. I mean, it helps with essay writing as well. When I applied for my law degree, it was a requirement that we actually had to have. I mean, every university is different, right? But Hertfordshire wanted at least one essay-based subject. So luckily, I did actually do sociology as that was my only essay-based subject. So it helps with skills like that as well. But yeah, I felt like it was really beneficial for law actually, and I knew that I really enjoyed it, so I thought I'll probably like law because it's similar. But yeah.
Sure. Okay. By the way, there are a number of questions that are coming through. You've still got time to submit your questions. So the way you do that, on your questions tab on your dashboard, click on that. It'll open out to a text box. You can type the question in there, and then it will come through to me. So what the question that I've had come in, so specifically for you, Bart, is: are there any A levels that you wish you'd done now that you're studying law as a degree?
Oh, kind of thinking back now. I guess maybe business would also apply to certain areas if you want to go down the more commercial route. Psychology is definitely a good one, I guess, in terms of how human behaviors can apply to the law. I mean, anything you could really shoehorn into that legal umbrella. I think with any subject, even at university, employers don't really mind what subjects you studied. In fact, some employers actually prefer if you didn't study law because you have the kind of different experience in other areas and you'll bring in those transferable skills into the legal profession. So I've heard of people who've gone and studied music at university, and the thing is, if you're studying a non-law degree, obviously what you'll do is you'll take the it's called the graduate diploma in law, I believe, or the law conversion course for a year. It's quite intense, and you essentially do an entire law degree in 1 year. And following that, there's all the post-qualification. And I think a lot of employers will value that because you're not the same as everyone else. There's something different in terms of what you've been through, what you've done, and so yeah, it's not necessarily what subject you choose. It's just choose something you're passionate about, choose something you enjoy, and if you want to get into law at any point in the future, that's fine. You can still do that, and you may even be all the better for it. So.
Sure. Okay, thank you. The question here, well, for Amy and Julia, and this actually fits in quite nicely with what we're talking about at the moment, about how you can gain perhaps better experiences and understanding of this. You might have to check this with the boss before you answer it, actually. Do your firm offer work experience for Year 12 students?
No.
The answer is no, actually.
Abroad, no, but yeah, it's more. Amy, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but it's more aimed at sort of university students. But I'll let Amy expand on it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be at least a university level or above, or 18 effectively, just purely because the work that we do is very sensitive. It's not for young eyes, effectively. We will see things that are quite harmful, and also clients need to feel comfortable speaking, in meeting rooms with us. And we offer work experience, but it's not until a university level, really, just because of the nature of the work.
Sure. So are there any experiences that someone before they're 18, so maybe the person who's asked this is in Year 12 at the moment, are there any experiences that they could gain themselves without actually perhaps setting foot into a solicitor's office that would help them understand the industry a little bit better? So there's another question that came in earlier, actually. Are there any good book recommendations that are good insight to law as well? So what would you recommend? How can someone gain better insights into law without formally getting that work experience, Juliet?
So I actually did Citizens Advice Bureau. I did that while I think I was in sixth form when I did it. It's a very long time ago. But yeah, I volunteered at the local Citizens Advice Bureau, and that gave me a sort of, because I believe I was studying my A-levels, so it sort of coincided with that. And they look at sort of employment issues, housing issues, debts, and that gave me sort of work experience in that sense. I don't know if anyone else has any work experience other than that.
Okay. Well, Bart, did you get any sort of relevant work experience or anything that you would recommend?
Prior to university or during university?
Yeah, prior to university.
Well, there is some there's the volunteering, obviously, which I think I do some of that work outside of the kind of legal sphere. But I would say that not just physically in person going to work, but there's a bunch of things called I think people might be familiar with virtual work experience courses. There's also these kind of things like webinars. Anything that gives you an insight, really, is something that you want to look at and really invest time in, because even that will be valued. It's all about really just taking the time to research and take initiative, really, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about, so the question about books, are there any literature that you would recommend? Well, you probably get asked to read a lot of things, don't you, whilst you're at university?
I mean, massive textbooks come to mind, but
I suppose you can subscribe to things like the Law Gazette and things like that. You get emails across sort of recent articles, but books, I don't know of any actual books, but I'd say more websites. If you've got access to the internet, especially Law Society Gazette, that's a good one.
Yeah. Okay. There's a couple of websites I'll share details of at the end of the webinar. I guess I mean, there are those ones. I know we've kind of tried to take people off the thought process around criminal law, but there are some really good and interesting, engaging books, aren't there, from barristers' perspectives about court cases that they've been in that may be interesting as well. Another question, similar line, Bart, I'm going to go to you to this one as well, just because you're more recently through the system. So the question is, I'm in year 10 now, and I believe getting a trainee seat is very competitive. Is there anything I can do now to boost my chances of getting a seat?
Well, it's good that you're thinking about it earlier than a lot of other people, actually. So in that regard, you're already kind of ahead. I mean, I didn't even know about this until A level, until year 12. So what I would say is, if you're planning on
Get your name out
doing,
there.
yeah, get your name out there. Hear from people, see if there's anyone you know who's in the profession who does that kind of work. Really kind of almost build that network early, so that so that you know that you can kind of get a foot in the door and see what kind of experience that you may want to get in the future. And as well, I would also say is, you don't necessarily have to go down the traditional A-level route. There are such things as solicitor apprenticeships, for example, and they're being offered to people who are, I believe, even in sixth form, around about the same age. And so you could actually do that and kind of learn on the job, also do a degree alongside it. And they're also quite competitive, but just being able to kind of get ahead of everyone else, that's quite valuable.
Yeah, sure. When we spoke a couple of days ago, we spoke about degree apprenticeships, and that they're essentially very few and far between in this particular industry. Do any of you know anyone who's done a degree apprenticeship, or do you know of firms that do? No, we've got some shaking heads there. They do exist, but they are very few and far between at the moment. I mean, also just thinking about some of the sort of the skills that you have. I mean, I guess if law was as portrayed in Hollywood and on TV, where it's just about barristers standing up in front of court, we would say perhaps be part of the school's debating club if they've got one. It'd be good for public speaking. But Amy, you spoke about some of those sort of skills and qualities that you need, that those research techniques that you have to have, and I guess that attention to detail. Are there any particular sort of skills that you can remember learning actually when you were at school, that you think, oh, actually, that's really set me up quite nicely now?
Gosh, any form of public speaking or any presentations we used to have to do, actually, that helped. Do you know what, actually, it sounds really strange, but doing music and actually being a part of orchestras and doing concerts, things like that, I had to stand up in front of loads of people and perform, and actually I feel like that was such a confidence booster. And although it's got nothing to do with law, I felt like that really, I used to be quite a shy person. I felt like that was what made me less shy generally. And I think if I hadn't done that, I might not actually be where I am today, and it sounds bizarre, but weird things like that really, really help you. So I think anything that was a confidence booster really, really helped me with law, because you do have to come across as a really confident person, even if you're not a barrister standing in court. You've got to stand up to people on the phone and speak to people on the phone, and sometimes be assertive, because that's the kind of work that it is. So yeah, anything like that was really helpful. Anything to do with essay writing, I feel like was really helpful, and even maths, to be honest. I mean, in family, at the moment, the sort of work that I do with matrimonial stuff, there's a lot of finances, and actually I feel like my A-level maths really helped with that in a way. Although I felt initially maybe I shouldn't have done that, maybe I should have done another essay-based subject when I knew what I wanted to do. I can't, you make the most of the skills you got from it, and actually it's really helped me with the numbers side of things. But generally, anything that would help your resilience at school, resilience is really, really important for law. You've got to be able to learn to realise that you're going to make mistakes, and you've got to be able to pick yourself back up. But yeah, generally, I think anything that's a confidence booster was the main thing for me.
Sure, okay. Juliet, have you always been a details person? Because I guess you have to read so much, don't you, to pick out the most important bit of detail. Is that something you always had an ability to do?
Oh yes, I am a list person. I follow my list. What I would say, following on from Amy as well, I used to be a dancer, so I did a lot of competitions and things like that, and I think that has grown my confidence as well. I think Amy used to do all that sort of extracurricular things as well, and I just think it's not all about sort of getting your head in a book, reading articles, things like that. I think it's also getting your confidence in other ways, public speaking, like Amy said, extracurricular activities, teamwork. Working in a team is part of the job as well. I mean, you're not going to know everything, and you do need to rely on people sometimes, their knowledge, especially people sort of higher up than you. And I think teamwork's a big one.
Sure, okay. Another question that's coming, I'll get all of you to answer this one. Maybe Bart, you first of all, though. Why choose the solicitor route over the barrister route?
Well, you don't have to. You can choose whichever one you want, actually. I know we don't have actually equal representation here in terms of the professions, but I believe there's well over 100,000 solicitors in the UK and around 17,000 barristers. So it's a bit of a smaller club, but in that sense, there's also a lot more sometimes support within that structure, but of a different kind, because most barristers are actually self-employed. There are a few who are in-house, there are a few who are employed, but really it just depends what you prefer. Do you prefer advocacy? Do you prefer representing your client in court? Do you want to be in court as often? Do you prefer being self-employed? Or would you prefer to be part of a team more consistently within a firm structure?
Okay, thank you. Very concise answer. Amy, could you envisage yourself doing that advocacy role of a barrister in court?
It's something that I did consider when I was doing my law degree. I did weigh up pros and cons of both, but I think I came to the decision that although I have developed some confidence and whatever, but I think I'm not a person that's very loud and that can be seen in court on a daily basis. It's very high pressure. I mean, I like the team approach. You don't get that as much as a barrister. I think I soon decided it wasn't for me. I found it quite a scary idea, standing there on my own in the courtroom. But yeah, I think the solicitor route was more suited for me. I prefer being in the office.
Sure, I understand. Okay, just going through a couple more of the questions that came up when we got people to register to join the webinar. So that one there at the bottom of the screen, if you could give me your thoughts on that, if you can see it, in fact. Is it common that it's around for paralegal? Just explain to us what we mean by a paralegal and where a paralegal fits into the wider process, and then maybe you can just talk to us about the that SQE. That may be a question for Bart to come on to, because it's something that'll be more prominent in your mind. But first of all, Amy, just tell us about paralegals and where they fit in.
Yeah, so I was a paralegal well, I first was a legal administrator, which was even below a paralegal, then for 1 year, then I was a paralegal for 2 years. So paralegals, effectively, they do a lot of admin, and they book appointments in for solicitors, often do help with some caseloads as well, a little bit, but it wouldn't be on the same level as, say, a trainee would be. You wouldn't be managing cases, you would just be helping doing sort of the odd jobs here and there as and when requested by solicitors. But it definitely really helped me to gain an understanding of general law in the area. I was doing it in property, so I got a really good understanding of property law. I felt that when I went to do my training contract and do the course, the LPC course, when I was doing that property area, I felt like it really helped my exam for that. It sort of came naturally to me, and also it just really helps with learning how to speak to clients, learning how to write emails in a certain way, organisation, and generally just how to be in an office. I think it was really helpful for me, and it also gets your foot in the door.
Sure. Okay. And then, so Bart, tell us what the SQE is, and if you could maybe just present that in the sort of the wider answer of what happens once you've finished your degree course.
Well, once you've finished your actual degree, your law degree, or your GDL, you'll either, if you want to be a barrister, there is something called the bar course, or the bar vocational course, or bar training course. There's a bunch of different names for it, but it's basically one course that you do that takes about a year. It's quite intensive. If you want to be a solicitor, there's the SQE. There was formerly the LPC, the legal practice course, I believe, but they've now phased that out, actually. So all the new intake for prospective solicitors will be SQE. And the SQE is split into two parts. So there's the solicitors qualifying exam part 1 and then part 2. So there's SQE 1 and 2. And SQE 1, I believe that's certain like multiple choice questions in there. It sounds easier than it is, but it's actually quite complex, the scenarios and level of research that goes into that. And from what I'm aware, there's something called, similar to the LPC, there's something called a qualifying work experience. So that's unlike the LPC, where you look for a training contract. With qualifying work experience, what you're doing is you're going into up to 4 different institutions, actually 4 different companies, all law firms, and you can get essentially up to 2 years work experience in those different fields. And once you've done that, you're qualified as a solicitor. And on the barrister side of things, once you've done the bar course, you'll be looking to do what's called a pupillage. That's, I believe, a year or 2 in a set of chambers, basically shadowing or working under a more senior barrister. And then from that point, once you get a tenancy and all the rest, you'll be a practicing barrister.
Sure, and you're still looking forward to going through all of that process, but you're kind of very much in the infancy of it, and best of luck to you. So, Amy, just in summary, if someone was to start a degree course in September this year, realistically, when would they expect to be fully qualified? How many years as a minimum?
The average, I mean, it's changing obviously with the SQE, so I can't say for sure whether that takes longer or not, but for me, it took 6 years. So that was 3-year degree, 1 year for the master's / solicitor's exams, and then 2-year training contract. Obviously that's changing. You could do it quicker in 5 years if you did the accelerated degree. But yeah, 6 years is the standard sort of time limit. So I started as soon as I finished school, and I'm only just about finishing, so.
There you go. It's a long journey, but by the sounds of it, a very rewarding one. So
Yeah.
look, just to close, I'm very conscious that I've got three solicitors with me, so they will be working to the clock, I'm sure. And Juliet, there's giveaways that people in your office are leaving it in their coat, so you'll have to turn all the lights off if I keep you too much longer. So just a couple of websites that you might be interested in. So the Law Society and the Lawyer Portal seem like they're both really good websites. They've got some very good sort of general information on there for anyone currently at school who wants to know a little bit more about the industry. Probably cover a lot of things that we've spoken about today, but do have a look at them. Some really good resources on there as well. There's also the QR code there that will take you straight through to the University of Hertfordshire's law school, some information about them when they've got open days. I say, even if you're adamant you don't want to go to the University of Hertfordshire because you want to travel further afield as Juliet did, then do recommend just go in there anyway. It's probably the closest one to you. You can have a good chat with the tutors there. Possibly people like Bart will be on hand as well and can talk you through their experiences. And the more conversations like that you have, the better informed you will be. So in closing, firstly, thank you to all of you who have watched this session live, have submitted your own questions to us as well. That's really helped with the flow of the conversation today. But more particularly, thank you so much to our three panelists for giving up their time and sharing their incredibly insightful experiences with us all today. So to Bart, to Amy, and to Juliet, very, very best of luck with the rest of your traineeships and of course your university course, Bart, and the experiences you'll go on to after it. So thank you for informing and inspiring all of our audience today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you as well to University of Hertfordshire and of course to Crane and Staples for allowing us to have access to you as well. And then just finally, again, for all of you, just a reminder, do have a look at our HOP website and do have a look at our platforms as well. That QR code will take you through to all the previous virtual webinars that we've run over the last 3 or 4 years. Now, there's something on there for everyone. We've got sessions coming up in careers in air traffic control, in sustainable construction. We've done pretty much everything you can think of in the past, so do have a look. Wishing you all the very best for your future career decisions and have a very good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.